Okay, everyone. Um, so what I wanted to do today is to continue our discussion topic on how to guide ourselves, giving all the turbulence and all the chaos that's happening around the world. And as it's more specifically as it relates to the bifurcation and this idea of polarization and tribalism that's causing the world to be split in half. And acknowledging the fact that neither of these half is actually the path toward the new earth. And I'm going to align this since we recently had our beloved Lucy, who transitioned from life into death, into the Bardo of death. And I've been doing a lot of research on the Tibetan Book of the Dead to guide her and her family, copies of which is here, into guide her and her family into the Bardo and guiding her into the Bardo of death so that she can either become illumined or enter into what the Tibetan Book of the Dead speaks about as a favorable reincarnation. So what I wanted to do today is that I want to go into details and really being, because the class we did last week was channeled, and because it was a huge revelation personally for me, because that path began to be clearer by the class. I began to see the horizon better. And part of it is because Lucy, in transitioning and passing from our group, is gifting us on the way out the clarity that she is enjoying. What I mean to say is that when you're making a soul connection with somebody that you're guiding through the bardo of transition and death, and you're guiding them through it, when they begin to find the light, you know it, because they begin to give you clarity. Their ascension and illumination begin to shine on you. And I'm beginning to get a lot of clarity, and I'm beginning to see what the landscape of the new earth looks like, giving some of the insights that I'm receiving from my exploration and trying to guide her soul. So as I'm trying to guide Maritza, her granddaughter, and her through the Bardo process, I am also finding my own way by realizing that the entire Tibetan Book of the Dead book, the whole thing, okay, with all of the details that are in there about and I'm going to go over the details in a moment. I'm just going to present the summary of what I intend to do. But the whole Tibetan Book of the Dead is a map, if you want, a GPS map to demonstrate what a real Bardo, or because in Sanskrit, in Tibetan, the Bardo Todol actually means the great liberation through hearing. Bardo is a gap between one state or another. It's a transition. Anytime something is transitioning, they're going to Bardo. So as such, since this book was written 1,500 years ago with all of the detail, the 49-day journey that a soul would make as they go from life into death and experiencing multiple times on a daily basis, although initially the experience is illusion, they have very vivid illusionary experiences, either of light, of illumination, or for that matter, after 9 days of what they call the wrathful deities, which are terrifying visions and terrifying experience of pain and suffering and torture. And as these experiences are happening, the monk who's reading the text to the soul or to the person who's dying keeps saying to them, whatever you're experiencing is an illusion. It doesn't exist. It's a projection that your mind is creating out of your greatest fears. And if you can recognize this, the suffering will end instantaneously. And then behind it, the light will show up. And if you can accept that the light is your identity, if you can not, they don't use the word accept, they use the word over and over again. If you can recognize that the light is you, then illumination, then recognition and liberation is instantaneous. Okay? So if you can do this, and by the way, in each of the days, like I said, day one, when the first brilliant light shows up, and the person, the soul of the person who's transitioning cannot either recognize it or does not recognize it, you have to be very special to recognize this on day one. You have to have done tons of work from past lives and from even this life of trying to constantly liberate yourself. And then in day one, you instantaneously recognize the light, not as God, not as your family members coming to get you, not angel, but you recognize that this is my body, this is me. And the moment you identify with it, you enter into the ascended and illumined realm. And you leave the Bardo at perpetuity. You don't have to reincarnate and go to the real of samsara, which is the wheel of life and death and rebirth. Okay? Very few people get this. They have to go to the various stages, day after day after day, until they get it. And if you don't get it, you get another chance by reincarnating into what they call a favorable reincarnation. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this, it's because the interesting thing that the book points out, every day, let's say the first day you didn't recognize it. The second day, the light that shows up, the experience is not a white light. It's not a blinding white light. It's a blue light. But it is a terrifying blue light because it's so piercing, it's blinding, and it goes right into your heart. And if you're not prepared to that kind of intensity, most people are not. They try to run away from the light, and there is a dimmer light that's on the side that seems to be more comforting. And they keep warning you in the text. The mud keeps warning the person who's dying, do not go in the dim light. Because if you go into the dim light, you will reincarnate immediately into one of the 6 realms. The realm, or either one of the other 5 realms, rather. Because the 6th realm is the realm of illumination. You could reincarnate in the realm of the jealous god, the realm of the realm of hell, or the realm of the demon, the realm of humanity, the realm of animals, and the realm of the angry ghosts, where you remain behind because you're too attached to people, places, and things. You had too much attachment and too much desires. And if you're someone who had great passion and desire for the thing of the earth, you're going to turn into an angry ghost. You will not leave. You will remain earthbound. So while this light shows up, let's say the first blue light, they talk about the deity that exists in that light. It's the Buddha of wisdom, which Blue Buddha, and all the other beings that are around him. And they describe vividly the vision that you're going to get. It may not be, depending on your belief system, the exact image, because they describe a Buddhist deity. It may end up being something that's slightly different, but it will be a blue light. That's the point. It will be a blue light. And more importantly, they describe a prayer. The monk recites a prayer to the deity of that blue that exists in that blue light, the presence that exists in that blue light. Because that blue light is nothing more. Think of the first experience, the first day of the white light, as a prism through which multiple color light diffract. And each color light is an aspect of the personality of God. So the first one may be wisdom, the second one may be gratitude, the third one may be mercy, and so on and so forth. But each one of them have a different color, a different aspect of the personality of God shows up as a different deity. They call the first few experiences as the benevolent deities. Beyond that, after the 9th day, you begin to experience what they call the wrathful deities, which are the fearful and terrifying experience where your fear begins to be projected onto, vividly into a immersive experience. So what's interesting and what I want to point out to is that they make a big point of reading a prayer. And for every day it's different. A prayer to the being that exists, the Buddha that exists in that light. And they ask the Buddha for safe passage in this turbulent and frightful journey that you're going through, so that you, as the soul that's lost, that's trying to find the light, can connect to this particular luminosity that you're experiencing. And I'm going to explain to you in a second why I'm pointing these out, these characteristics out, and I'm going to explain to you why I'm saying this. Because the prayer becomes extremely important. Every day, the second day it's a yellow light, the third day it's a red light, it's a green light, and so on and so forth, and it's a rainbow light. As this is happening, there's a prayer to whatever Buddha or being shows up, and there's a prayer to ask them to shepherd you and guide you so that you can enter into their realm, so that you're not as terrified as you are when you initially experience it, so that you can become acclimated to the slide and you can accept it and you can enter into that realm. Okay? Then, if you still have not accepted the luminosity through all of this, then what happens is that you end up, after 9 days, experiencing the beginning of what they call the wrathful deity, which is the projection of all of your fears onto this daily experience of fear and torture. Terrifying experiences. Let's say you're afraid of snake. You see yourself in a snake pit, and you see yourself all enwrapped in snake, and you got to get out, and you have to figure out a way to crawl yourself out of it, to do this, to do that, and so on and forth. And as you do this, if you find where the pit is, there's a dim light, and you're trying to crawl toward the dim light, you're doing it wrong, because that will let you reincarnate in an unfavorable situation. You have to remain with the fear and the experience, and you have to realize that whatever you're afraid of, your mind is creating. And because you're creating it, you can uncreate it. And once you begin to realize, I'm creating this is an illusion. And the moment you realize this, then at that moment, the illusion stops, and you will find the light behind once the illusion disintegrates. And there is also a prayer that is done for all of the wrathful deities so that you can find the luminosity beyond the fearful experience. And I wanted to point these very specific things out to you because in some ways, because I'm guiding Lucy through all of this, I have been also having my dreamscape has changed. I am beginning to also have these kind of experiences in my dream time. Whereas before Lucy studied her about those stage, I didn't have those experiences. And it's gifting me a clarity that I didn't have before. Because when someone is guiding someone else with a Bardo, you make a soul connection with them, you can tell when they are traversing this very dangerous landscape, which is the landscape of the Bardo, because you could err, you could go anywhere. Again, out of fear, out of you not being in the right spirit, you could go somewhere that you could go in a bad neighborhood. And so that's why every day there's a prayer that's recited for you to remind you to say this prayer so that you can find guidance, so that the benevolent being that exists, and even for the wrathful deities, there's a benevolent being that's behind the illusion that's ready to hold your hand and pull you through. so that you can enter, because they are trying to assist you, because even the wrathful experiences are a gift for you to find the light. Any questions or comments so far?
Pierre, if someone goes into, let's say, the blue light,
Yes.
will that be then favorable for them?
Yes.
So
All of them are favorable ultimately.
So although it isn't the first initial blast of blinding white luminosity, it will lead to that same place.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. In other words, the light gets dimmed so that you can enter into it. It begins to diffract into colors that are less brilliant to give you an opportunity. Because if you miss the first one, for the rest of the 48 days, it will continue to show up in different disguise.
I see.
To still allow you an opportunity to step into it.
And how long does the first light last?
It depends on you. For somebody that recognizes it and that's completely accepting of it and that's ready and prepared for it, it will last the way they describe it in the book, in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Bardo Process, as long as it takes for you to have a meal. For other people, it's just seconds. They see it for a second, and because they don't recognize it, it disappears, and the connection is lost. But the person who accepts it and gets prepared and ready to be illumined, the radiation of it will not only illumine the person who is transitioning, but the people who are around them while they are transitioning or making the soul connection with them will see it too. The person becomes stunningly beautiful, or you see the peace and the serenity, and you can feel the elevation and the peace radiating from them, and you know there's light in the room, and they've been met by something.
So the first series of colored lights then lasts, you said, 9 days?
It's about 9 days, yes. 9 days.
And during that time, it's important for the family not to be weeping, because that holds the soul back to the earth, yes?
Yes. During the entire Bardo, although people do weep and we're human, etc., but they're particularly during the first time of transition. If the person is sick and let's say going to hospice care and family members are there and they're weeping and crying, it's the worst thing that you can do for them. You're holding them back. They're not gonna leave their body because they're worried about you. And when they do transition, instead of going into the light, they hear you crying, they're gonna run to you. They will not go into the light.
You also said for someone who has great passion for things of the earth, what about for people that have great trepidation about leaving people behind? Will the result be the same?
Yes.
They will then be reincarnating into a less favorable reincarnation?
No, they will remain behind as what the Tibetan Book. They will enter the realm of the hungry ghost.
Oh, the hungry ghost, yes.
They will remain behind. They will haunt and begin to, whatever it is that they attach to, they will go to it.
Okay. Thank you. And by the way, have you sensed where Lucy is on her journey?
I don't, because her granddaughter Marissa was asking me the other day because she feels her in the house still. But what I'm sensing, she's not in the light yet. She's still traveling, she's still transitioning, because my dreams, I will know when she's in the light. I will sense it. My dreams, because I'm making, as a spiritual teacher, she made a connection to me because she had asked me to guide her through this. My dreams have changed, and I have this uncanny ability, like when I care for somebody very deeply, whether they're alive or dead, I begin to have a phenomenon called dream echo, where whatever it is that they're experiencing in the astral or dream world, I see it. I had the same experience too. So my experience or not, they are not terror, but they are entrapping, meaning like I have dreams where a situation is presenting itself and there is no escape out of it. I'm feeling myself being in a situation where I know I don't want to be here, but I don't know how to get out, kind of thing. And I know it's not my dream because it has nothing to do with my life. I'm dreaming. I'm feeling what her soul, the stage at which her soul is. You see what I'm saying?
So we could still be guiding, so to speak, or praying for Lucy to go to this light, and she's not there yet.
She's not. I don't think she's there yet. No.
Okay. I whenever I think of her through the days, I do that, but I wasn't sure if she still was benefiting from that, or hopefully would be benefiting from it.
Yes, she's not there yet, because as my conversation with Maritza yesterday, she was not there, because Maritza is still having dreams about her in the house.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And you will know it, because the moment that happened, you don't dream of them anymore. You know, you can feel it. There is an ease. You don't sense them around you. Now, remember, I had said that the Bardo, it's not just about life and death and rebirth. The Bardo is also the Bardo of life, that during our daily life, our life right now, we have multiple experiences that we have where the Bardo is still taking place. When you're going into deep meditation, like we're going to do at the closing of this class, when you're going through experiences, like when you inhale, exhale, and then you pause at the retention of the breath, that's a Bardo. When there are multiple experiences that we're having where Bardo or the luminosity can present itself, and those are moments that if you capitalize on them, if you recognize, for example, in the retention of the breath, that this is a holy moment for you, and you release and let go and surrender your attachments into this gap in this moment, the light will show up behind it. Because the way that the Tibetan Book of the Dead described it, they call this the indivisible emptiness and luminosity. That there is a great emptiness. In other words, for you to find the luminosity, you have to let go of all of your attachments. You have to this is an ego death. You have to surrender everything. You have to empty yourself out completely. And you have to empty yourself into what, again, the Tibetan Book of the Dead call it the emptiness. The video that I had sent you all to watch, I don't know if you had an opportunity to watch it, I sent it yesterday. It was amazing to me because he was talking about the nature of death, and he used an example about an astronaut. This is Alan Watts, an astronaut that went to space, and somebody asked him, you went into the heavens, blah, blah, blah. Have you experienced God? And somebody asked the astronaut says, yes. And she's black. And the person was totally shocked, and people started laughing in the audience. And he began to explain what he meant by God being not only female, but being black. And he explained what the blackness means, that the blackness begin to be the emptiness, the vacuum that gets created and in which things deposit. And he began to describe the relationship between the luminosity and the light and the emptiness and the blackness. And it's a very thought-provoking video. And it illuminated even further for me what I've been studying for the past 2 months now on this book as it relates to concept, because it was a merger. It was a merging point for me. That this relationship with this luminosity. Can you all still hear me? Yes? Okay, I'm good.
Yes.
All right. And the relationship with this luminosity becomes, for the luminosity to show up, you have to let go of everything, and that let go is a surrender into an unknown. Okay? Let's focus on this for a moment. Let's zoom in very carefully, because that's the key. And the reason I'm doing this, it's because right now, the whole planet is going to Bardo. The bifurcation, the polarization, the duality, that's happening all around the planet is exactly this. It's actually the wrathful deities in vivo, not in death Bardo, but in life Bardo, in vivo. All these experiencing, where you're seeing things being deconstructed, destroyed, everything that you thought was true. You see your worst nightmare being manifested. People are foaming at the mouth, they're going crazy. This is Bardo. We are collectively going to Bardo. So it behooves us to focus, since the book mapped it out carefully. It behooves us to know what the steps are in the Bardo of death and apply them, because they are the same in what we're collectively experiencing right now. We know that the duality, and I've said this to you before, that in the duality of what the humanity is experiencing right now, it's a seesaw. One side is the weight, the other side is the counterweight. And neither of them is the new earth. It's not enlightenment, it's not insight, ascended if you're allowing yourself to be caught in the drama and the crises that are being agitated and created to capture your attention into either one of these sides. So it's important for all of us to select carefully where we give our attention, what we give our attention to. And so I'm trying to illuminate for you the parallel, so that you understand how to apply it as it relates to how these things can very easily capture you. I remember telling you an experience I had last week of somebody that I know, that I care for as a teacher or coach, who begin to post some crazy stuff. Some of the things irrational or correct, and all of a sudden there was a veer off, there was a turn, and there was all interpretation. And it was a very long post. I read the whole thing, and then I began to write down a response. I wrote 2.5 paragraphs before I said to myself, wait a minute, what are you doing, Pierre? You're letting yourself go into that scale, that seesaw. Because if you respond, he will respond back. And not only that, his entire community will respond to you, and you're going to engage. You're wasting your energy into something that you don't. It's the illusion of the Bardo that they are saying, that the in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, that they're saying it's an illusion of your consciousness. It's your fear that are being projected, and it's not real. What I'm saying is that no matter how catastrophic, and I'm not saying that you're going to sit on the side and go on top of a mountain and let the world fall apart. You're still going to act morally, and you will do what you think is correct, socially, politically, and otherwise, to the best of your ability. But you're going to have preferences, but you're not going to have attachment to the outcome. Because if you have attachment to the outcome, you're caught in the wheel, and you're not going to find the luminosity. So as I'm experiencing all of this, I'm seeing, again, I was writing and I was responding. And thank God I had the clarity at that moment to say, wait a minute, what's going on here? Do not respond to this. You're wasting your time. Because if you respond to him and try to so-called give him your point of view, you're going to be on the opposite side, and you enter the duality. And what you're focusing on is not the duality. And speaking of which, when we're going into that space of trying to find that third path, the attachments that I have socially, politically, the attachment that I have to people, places, and things, people I think I love, I care for, etc. As I'm focusing on them, and I'm realizing that I want this, or this is important to me, and I have to respond in such way, and I have to defend it, and I have to, all of that defense, all of that survival, all of that stem from one thing. We're trying to control outcome. It's control. We're being God's assistant, and we're trying to control the outcome. And because we're trying to control it, we are it's coming from fear. This control is actually, and every time you're trying to exercise in control, it's because you don't have control and you're trying to regain it. Listen carefully to what I'm saying. Every time you think that you're trying to exercise control by grabbing onto a situation, by trying to do an executive this, that, or the other, it's because there's a part of you that fear that you lost control and you're trying to regain it. Yet the higher aspect of control, the way you really become in control, is by surrendering and letting go of everything into that blackness and that emptiness. It's when you completely let go of the control. The moment you inhale from the core of the earth and you move that energy wherever you feel the control to be, and you surrender it as you exhale outside of your head and you release it, the moment you do this and you let it go completely, at that very moment, it's released in the emptiness. And once you do this, what happened reciprocally, because the emptiness and the luminosity are indivisible. The moment you surrender it and you let go of your desire to survive and to be in charge, and you're afraid you're going to lose, and etc., and if I don't act this way and I don't do this, I'm going to lose everything. The moment you let go of all of this, the field, what I call the vast continents or the blessed field, infinity times infinity, source, whatever you want to call it, that field will respond back and you will experience the mastery of true control. Why? Because we are not separated from the things that we're observing. Quantum physics is already telling you that the observer and the object are connected. We are influencing what we see, what we're experiencing, because we are actually, by the desire and the intention that we have, we are creating the script, we are writing the script. The object will behave in a manner that we intend. If we want to see one thing, we will experience it. If we want to see another thing, we will experience it. This is the double slit, the world famous double slit experiment. Now, giving that understanding, when you completely surrender yourself and all of your desire to control what's going on and what's not going on, this is why I keep saying someone who's in the path of ascension has to have preferences and not attachments. You prefer that things were to go this way, but if it doesn't happen, you're not foaming at the mouth and losing it. So that you can surrender and let go. And the moment you do this, the entire vast continents in the quantum field will acquiesce and will create on the outside a reflection of this surrender and this release, and you will experience true control. And you don't know what the field is going to do, because the field is a morphogenic field, and it's composed of, I don't know how many celestial bodies and beings that are completely alive, that are collectively acting as one consciousness. And that vast field will find the most appropriate response to give you whatever it is that you were fearing that you released, to give you the exact scalar invert of that frequency, to cancel it out. Because this experiencing of you attempting to control are emotionally charged. And when you release it into that field, the field will nullify it by giving an opposite frequency to it and nullify it. And once it renders you neutral, it will take you to where you need to be, or it will change the law of the physical world, the laws of physics, to balance, to match your new state of consciousness of neutrality to what's around you right now. It's a subtle point. I hope you're getting it. But it's a critical point, in particularly right now with all of the chaos that's around us. To the degree that you get engaged and you begin to foam at the mouth and you begin to be activated, and I'm not, again, it's not you being socially indifferent. I want you to go out there and be socially engaged and do all of the things that you think it's correct for you to do. But from a point of view of what my teacher, Dr. Stone, calls involved detachment. You're involved in the things of the world, but you understand that you're a spiritual being and you're not attached to the outcome. When the change will happen and how it's going to happen, it's not up to you. You're not God's assistant. You're not wanting it to happen in 2 hours or 6 days or in December 21st. You're not Gandalf that's casting a spell and commanding for the manifestation of it to happen. You surrender all of it into the vast field and you let the field that knows better take control. This is true control. So it sounds like a Zen Buddhism kind of thing. And in some ways it is. The way to have true control is to completely surrender. And the degree to which you surrender and you let go completely, with the intention and the belief that you're supported, and that the desire that you're trying to bring into the field, or the fear you want to be balanced by the field, already happened. And again, that's a state of consciousness that the Kabbalists call certainty. And to the degree that you're in that certainty, then all of a sudden the problem is gone. The universe, because the physical and natural laws are directly connected to consciousness. And the degree to which you have surrendered and you have released your own prejudices, your own attachments, your own fear, your own control, the degree to which that you have released all of this into this unknown. And it's terrifying to do this because God knows I've been trying. I'm successful at times, but not all the time. The degree to which that you can release this, you can let go of all of the desires, and you can surrender all of it out. And you can say, I'm not my experiences, I'm not my attachments, I'm not, all of my five senses could be trying to, blind me and deceive me. I release all of it and I let go. And I open, and as you surrender, it's like you it would be to the effect of similar to what happened with Christopher Columbus. Because at the time that Columbus was going to the so-called West Indies, the belief system that if you travel in that direction, there was a pit at the end of the earth that took you directly into hell. In fact, except for him and a few of the people that were around him, the rest of his crew were all thieves, people that were in prison. That Queen Isabella, because no one in their right mind that was actual sailors would ever accompany him, because to them it was a suicide mission. This is why also when the Spaniards originally arrived in the New World, they were so greedy and they took the gold, and they were so quick to abuse the native people that were there. It's because they were criminals. The vast majority of them were criminals. So it's that kind of experience of releasing all that you're holding on to, like a cat grabbing onto a wall. You have to let go. You have to release all of it. And you have to release it into an unknown nothing. And the degree to which you can release it into what appeared to be a darkness initially, or an emptiness, once the release is complete and the surrender is total, you realize that the emptiness is actually the luminosity in the skies. Any questions or comments? I know that I'm deep frying your brain. Okay, I know that I'm going far out there, but this is the way, this is the only way for us to find that third path. You have to do it personally for you, and don't go out there and trying to tell people about this. This has to be first a personal journey. You have to make your way into that darkness and the fear that's connected to that darkness. The same way initially when people see this luminosity, they're afraid of it. Or when you have the wrathful experiences, you think it's an experience of darkness or experience of suffering. And once you are able to face that darkness and that surrender, and this is where the idea of praying, the prayer in all of the stages of the Bardo, there's always daily a prayer that the person who's reciting the Bardo for the deceased remind the deceased to say to the deity or the fragment of the personality of God that they're experiencing on that day, for that deity to give them support and guide them into initially the fearful experience of release, of letting go. Because the biggest issue through the whole Bardo is to let go of who you are, who you think you are. That's the biggest problem. You have to surrender your identity. The Dalai Lama described it as the absence of existence and self-identity. Think about the words. The absence of existence and self-identity. This is how empty you have to do. You have to accept this luminosity. Questions or comments?
Yes, so that would be what the process is for Lucy and others in that journey, to not just recognize the great light, but to surrender self-identity in order to go into the light.
The only way you can you can recognize or accept the light is by surrendering your self-identity.
And by that self-identity, that oneness, that individuality is no longer true anyway, because you enter the great void when you lose self-identity.
Correct. In other words, you have to surrender your attachment to who you think you are. Because who you think you are is an illusion. It's not true. You think you're a singularity of expression of the divine, that you're small and you're tiny and minuscule and you're in your shell. But in fact, what you are is a celestial being. And because you're so immense and you're so vast, you have to let go of that false belief and your attachment to that identity. Does that make sense?
That would be hard for most earth beings, right? Earthbound beings, to see themselves as such a great, great being.
Yes and no. Yes, in a sense that if you're thinking of it from an ego perspective, that you're a celestial being and you're big and you're immense, you're this and that and the other. This is not the practice of meditation and the practice I've been taking to you too. I hope that's not the way you're perceiving it, because we're doing it actually from humility. It's to understand that as you take the breath, the universal breath, and you're surrendering your attachments out into source and you're letting it go, it's coming from a point of you understanding that it's not your ego doing it. You're not doing it so that you can stand on a podium and tell people I have 4 wings and I'm a special being. Do you understand what I'm saying? But it's coming from the perspective of you saying, I want to experience my true self. I want to be illumined into a sense. And in order for me to do this, I have to let go. And in fact, that letting go is complicated, because we're too attached to self-identity. We're too attached to the things that we have, the connection that we have to people, to places, to things, to our home, to our family members. We're too attached to the privilege that we have, to all the things that are of the earth. We're too attached to them. And you have to exist in a state where you're still in the body and you're still experiencing singularity, yet at the same time, during your meditation, you have to let go of all of it and becoming a plurality and embrace a collective awareness, which is the luminosity. Or first, the emptiness, the void. Make sense?
And the void is only a void because you haven't let go entirely.
That's right. That's right. And it's terrifying because it's so immense. And we are stuck in it as a point when in fact it's not a point. It's infinite. And it's too big and we're saying it as the void, as something that's black, that's terrifying. And that's why you make a prayer. That's why there are prayers every day in the Bardo. There's a prayer. So this, I have said this before, that, and even I channel this, that one of the things that the Galactic Masters were saying during the transition of the Earth for the next 7 years, we have our relationship to the divine, to who our relationship to our God concept has to evolve. And we have to be praying and asking for guidance in that direction. Because if you don't have a relationship with your higher power, you can't make it. The void will terrify you too much. You will cling on to what's on the earth and you will never transition. You will not allow your consciousness to go into that vast expansion.
This is what the Christian call die to self and be born again.
Yep, absolutely. What I call in my own language, the ego death.
Yeah.
For you to ascend, you have to go to an ego death. You have to surrender completely your self-identity. That's the crucifixion, really. That's the symbol of the crucifixion.
Yeah.
So in that great luminosity, in that great oneness, does the individual have any sense of separation? Is there any identity in that state? Is it all ocean made up with many drops, less defined than previously?
It's kind of hard to say, because as I'm doing my merger and my experience with this field, there are moments where I black out. I don't know where I am. Okay, and you could say at that moment when I'm in the blackout, my identity is not there. But I come back to where I am at moment while I'm still in the expanded state. So what happened, I was guiding in my other class one student who was falling asleep and blacking out. And I was telling her over time, it won't happen anymore. And she just texted me yesterday to tell me exactly that. She said, it's not happening anymore. I'm being cognizant of the whole meditation while still being in the expanded state. There comes a time, and it's very hard to explain. It's not that you lose your identity from per se, but you become something else. Okay, I'm going to try to describe it in a description of going from 3D to 4D. Scientists or mathematicians are trying to always describe what the different dimensions look like. 3D, X, Y, and Z axis to describe a cube and how we experience a cube in 3D. What they describe in 4D, it's what they call the tesseract, which is a reflection of what a 4D cube would look like in 3D. And the way it looked like the cube is rotating, inverting in itself, like a torsion field. It's keep collapsing. The plane of the cube keep collapsing back and forth. The best way that I can describe this to you is the experience that I call, and I've described this to you multiple times, when you're in deep meditation and somebody asks you a question and you're in the state, you're in the void or the luminosity, because they are indivisible. When you're completely surrendered to the void, the luminosity is with you at the same time. It's the yin and the yang, they're connected to each other. So when you're in that state and somebody query and asks you a question, my experience is that all of a sudden I have a fan opening up around me, where I see not only the side of the object in 3D when you're looking at a cube. If it's standing, depending on where it is, you might see 3 planes, the top and 2 sides. When you are in 4D, you see all the sides simultaneously. This is what the 4D axis is. It allows you to see all the underlying causes of everything simultaneously. 5D is even more, the cube gets more complex. And there are like, I forgot how many sides, I forgot the exact number. There are all of these other planes that you're actually seeing simultaneously. So if you're still wrapped up in your, this is why I said that your 5 senses have to surrender into that higher realm. Because if you're still wrapped up with your 5 senses, you will not be able to compute or to understand what you're looking at, or what you're sensing, or what you're perceiving. The mathematician have created model, and I can forward you the videos that shows what these things look like. But how we experience it physically in our body is exactly what I'm saying. All of a sudden, all these other facets inside of the same object you're looking at are beginning to show up for you. And the moment that happened, you are now in a transcendental state. Now, what awareness remains with you in that sense is that you have to let go of your cognitive analysis in 3D to allow these emerging different kind of other accesses and awareness to exist in you. How they're going to happen, I don't know. Because they're still emerging for me. And that's the honest truth. I hope that answered your question, Janice. Celidia, did you have a question? She was unmuted for a moment there. Okay. Are we still there?
I'm here.
Okay, terrific. All right, so where is this leading? Where are we going with this? Okay, let's say I've done this, and I'm the point where I'm seeing the cube with all of the multiple facets. The cube is a representation of the environment around us. Let's say I'm able to see all of this, and the mathematicians are using the cube as a simple object to try to represent mathematically what these other dimensions would look like. So let's say I'm able to get to the point, and I'm using my personal journey as a way to guide you. When you get to a point where you're experiencing the fan experience I'm talking about, you know that your perception has expanded into 4D. And depending how complex it is, it go to 4D to 5D, where you're seeing not just a few plane, where the scope very cause effect, or one cause multiple effect. When you're seeing it in a way that seems, as I said, for me, the fan experience is so dramatic. Sometimes one question and 8 completely different answers, and I know all of them are true simultaneously. Now, when you experience this, my linear 3D self now asks of this field, what is it that this person is able to understand now? And then the fan closes to maybe 1 or 2 pieces to slot of the fan that I can converse with the person right now. The field is immensely intelligent. It's infinity times infinity. And we will have to go to multiple experiences of release into the great darkness and void in order for us to accept it. And it has to be incremental and gradual. Each dimension requires us to let go more and more of our own identity. You can still exist in 3D and still in the 3D body and still and elevate into 5D. But I believe once you get into 6D and beyond, you can't exist in the physical flesh anymore. You have to exist in your light body. And at that point, the identity of who you are as we understand it in the physical body will be completely changed, transform into something else. It's like the caterpillar that goes into a cocoon and get transformed into a butterfly. You will become something else. And that field, okay, I've described this to you before as a flock of starling that are in murmuration. Actually, this afternoon as I was walking, because it was kind of overcast, there was a group of them that were trying to form over the Hudson River, where they begin to fly in configuration. It wasn't big enough. It wasn't billions of them all at once, but it was, let's say, a few hundred. And they begin to fly in this tight formation where individually they are not thinking about move left and everybody's trying to make it. There is a greater morphogenic intelligence that's guiding their movement and causing them to move in these incredible, beautiful morphogenic patterns. So you become one of the pieces in that greater intelligence. And the intelligence and the relationship that you have, it's not that you lose your identity per se, it's that your relationship to the greater whole becomes, what's the word I want to use? Interdependent. Your relationship is locked completely in interdependence. You're free to make any decision that you want, as long as it's interconnected to everything else that's around you. And everybody is doing the same thing, and as everyone is doing the same thing, the field keeps growing and keep expanding and keep moving into these unexpected twists and turns because it's alive. But as a collective rather than one individual. Any questions, any comments? Okay. Where are we going with this? Because let's say I can accomplish this. I can get myself to a state where I'm existing in that morphogenic awareness of this greater field, and I'm in sync, in murmuration with all of these other awareness and consciousness into this vast field, source, whatever you want to call it. For me to explain this to you, I'm going to go back to a biblical story. Now, I've explained this to you before, but I'm going to explain it in a different way. When Moses took the children of Israel out of Egypt and brought them at the edge of the Red Sea, during Exodus, the column of fire separated him from Pharaoh, and Pharaoh's army was waiting to pounce on them and kill them all. And at that point in the Bible, it is said that Moses asked God what he should do, and God said to him to extend his staff, and then the sea separated. The children of Israel went through. When they got on the other side, Pharaoh followed them, and the sea closed and engulfed Pharaoh's army. The Kabbalah says something completely different. It says that when Moses connected to God on that moment, God said to him, jump in the water. When Moses told the children of Israel what he received, they almost lynched him because 3 million people, particularly for a lot of the mixed multitude beings, people who are not Israelite, other slaves who joined Moses because they were seeing miracle, they couldn't understand what he was saying. And Moses had to stop them and say, God is trying to tell us we already have the means to create the miracle. So during the night, leading to the early morning, Moses took them into a state collectively, 3 million people, where they surrendered their attachments into this void emptiness, into God, into this luminosity. Their fear and their concern, and the greatest fear that they have, they thought they were going to die. This is a real fear. They could see behind the fire, the column of fire, Pharaoh's army with their horses all ready to pounce on them. Their fear was completely real, like they're about to die. Yet with all of that rage and venom right behind them, ready to destroy them. Okay, I want to paint the picture very clearly. With all that venom and all that rage and all these army people screaming and yelling behind them in proximity, separated only by this wall of fire, they were able to transcend the anger and the rage and to enter into a state of emptiness where they can release that fear and that attachment and put instead the one thing that they all desired, which was, give me safe passage, a prayer and a plea to God to give me safe passage. Notice the similarity to the Tibetan Book of the Dead, that every time you're experiencing the luminosity and, or for that matter, the wrathful deities, you have to pray to ask for passage so that you can traverse this dangerous journey. All of them had, Moses guided them all to be in one thought and one intention. Give us safe passage. And in the morning, as the column of fire was diminishing, all of the Israelites were completely quiet, staring at the water, while they were all in that state of certainty, asking the void, the indivisible, emptiness and luminosity to give them safe passage. Without trying to control how that safe passage is going to happen. That part is critical. You're not God's assistant. You don't know how it's going to be created. In an abstract way, you ask for safe passage. And a young teenager called Matroni got up in complete certainty that he will have safe passage and begin to walk into the sea. You could almost hear in my head the seashore lapping the beach of the Red Sea, and he began to walk into it. As the water got to his knee, he is in complete certainty, and the only thing that him and all of the other Israelites are begging, beseeching, and asking this luminosity for is safe passage. The water is in his waist. That's all they're asking for is safe passage. The water is in the seas in his chest, safe passage. The water is in his shoulders, safe passage. And the moment the water got into his mouth, the sea separated. He was the demonstration of this miraculous change. Now, what the Kabbalah said after this is actually more extraordinary than anything else I've ever read. In the Zohar, they describe the next sentence talks about this. You have to understand that natural and physical law obey consciousness. Because at that very moment, when the Red Sea separated, the law that operates water and how it rests and is distributed got suspended to create a shaft, a pathway. Thus, every body of water on earth split in half for the duration of them getting to safe passage to the other side of the Red Sea. And when the last Israelite was safely there, the law got returned back to what it was supposed to be, and they didn't do it. The point is that Moses was not like Gandalf casting a spell to do it by his own sheer power. It was the blessed field that did it. And the way it did it is because they collectively intended and asked and request something extremely abstract and simple. Not only did they ask it, but they initially surrendered their identity completely into it. Now, this becomes critically important because what I'm leading you to understand is this. Collectively, individually, we have to surrender our own personal identity into this blessed field. We have to accept the indivisible emptiness and luminosity. Once enough of us will have done this, where we begin to experience the other densities, where we end up having these tesseract-like experiences of experiencing this fan and seeing things instead of a one linear kind of thing, seeing multiple prong that explain the same thing in all kind of different ways, and all of them true at the same time. Once you begin to understand reality from that standpoint, we will collectively come together. I'm trying to get 32 people to do this with us. If I can get that amount of people together to be elevated and to be surrendered in that sense, and I'm doing the training with these other new students now to actually guide people into this, if I can get that amount of people to do this, collectively, we can begin to ask the vast field, the blessed field, for safe passage into the new earth. We can begin to beseech and pray and ask the vast field, the infinity times infinity, for safe passage into the new earth. And when we do this, a gate and a doorway will be open like the Red Sea to give us passage into that higher density, into the new earth. As simple as when the Red Sea was split in half. I hope you're understanding what I'm saying. If you all remember, was it 2018? I don't remember when. 2018, I think it was, when we sat and I asked you to do this exercise we call the monadic merger. All of us did this for 1 year every day. And we did a fire ceremony at Wisak, and after we did the ceremony, there were ET lights that followed us for days, and now for over a year, it kept showing on top of where we anchored this column of light in the middle of the fire pit. And I know not all of you did this exercise to the same degree or same intensity. And I know some of you missed certain days and certain nights. I know this. Even if some of you did it at 50%, at a flag that was half mast. Look what happened on that day as a result of this. When I went into town for the few of us who went for dinner, when we were coming back, these ET lights, at first it looked like stadium lights in the middle of the sky. And every time we drove to pass them, they showed up in front of us. Again and again, 3 times. And Chelsea, who was at a different hotel, was in the other car behind us. When she got to her hotel the next day, when I asked her, she started crying because she saw the same lights too. What would happen when we get into a state where our consciousness actually is completely surrendered, where we can accept our identity into 4 and 5D, and we were to ask God, give us safe passage. Simple as this. Nothing any more complicated than this. Give us safe passage into the new earth. Remember that what the Kabbalah said at that moment when I went in the Zohar. Physical law and natural law are controlled by consciousness. Any questions or comments?
Well, Pierre, you gave us a lot to think about tonight. Thank you. I appreciate a deeper understanding of many things that you've gone into before. What I wondered is if the new earth is part of our, in this earthly life, of our destination, let's say, or hopefully it is, that will put us into another dimension, 4th, 5th, 6th, whatever. Will our work be done? In other words, we answered the call, you said, to come at this time to Earth to assist humanity into this transition. Is that it? Once we're there, is there more? Oh, of course, there's always more, right? I guess that's a silly question. Is that, I guess the question is that the fulfillment of our Dharma?
It certainly would be the fulfillment of my Dharma. Because I know I made other promises, other places, and I told all of you when I'm done, I'm out of here. Because there are other things that I need to do, okay? And but what I can say to you is that at any moment, because you have free will, you can change your mind. So if at some point after having done all of this, you want to remain on on whatever the new earth is for a while to enjoy, the scenery and enjoy the landscape and exist in that morphogenic interdependent awareness, then terrific, wonderful. But other people might decide to do other things. Everybody has free will, and you can decide to do other things. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does in typical peer fashion. Leaves it open.
No, not the linearity and the cause and effect. You have to open yourself to the endless possibilities.
Yes. No, I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
Pierre, I really appreciate the class tonight. And I certainly did witness what you were talking about in 2018. And it was beautiful. And the news story about the Red Sea came very clear to me tonight, because I was focusing on those men getting drowned on the Red Sea, but Pharaoh's army, and now I'm looking at it in a different way, because there are great possibilities here, as you were saying, and you go in with one single purpose and a group, and then you surrender that into this field, this vast consciousness that we could do it, and miracles can happen. So thank you so much. I appreciate it so much, and carry on.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Bobby. Thank you.
And something I want to ask you, Phil, it wasn't a question, but I was glad that you put the Mighty I Am presence that we had been doing, focusing on that for the past several years, into the same context as the luminosity, because I saw that, or I think of that as one and the same thing, the luminosity and that Mighty I Am presence. But something, that was throwing me at the beginning, and especially in relation to the Bardo, when you're talking about the luminosity and not referring to that Mighty I Am presence, which we have been working with. And I'll just say for myself, I feel a comfortability with that understanding and a closer personal way of expressing then to me the luminosity seems like a description rather than necessarily a state of being, where the Mighty I Am presence puts me right there. So I'm not. Maybe my question, or maybe the way I'm stating it, sounds, kind of convoluted. But for me, when I focus on that identification with that total and complete acceptance and merger with that Mighty I Am presence, I feel myself instantly there than any other kind of way. I'll just put it that way. So I think when you put together different types of understandings, and our understanding in the Western world has been closer to that, I would say, to the understanding of the Mighty I Am presence than to the Eastern tradition or the Buddhic understanding of the luminosity. It just causes a little bit of it takes a time for me to make that adjustment, where there's no space in the understanding of that Mighty I Am, and going in and accepting that as yourself.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Celidia. Thank you for sharing. One of the things that I'm going to say to you, since you're part of the Wednesday class where I am going in great, profound depth about the merger in the Mighty I Am Presence, I can tell you that in 2 weeks, there's going to be an upgrade where the luminosity will be blended with the Mighty I Am Presence. Okay?
Okay. Okay, good.
Okay, there's going to be an upgrade. It's already planned. It's already part of the plan. And I'm sorry if I didn't explain it before, but to my consciousness and to what I'm doing, there is no separation between them.
Okay, that makes it easier for me because I'm like you said. Where are we going? I was wondering myself. Where are we going?
Well, Pierre, I appreciate the class. You know, what well, a lot of things do, but I'm going to come in on this. Like growing up, my mom used to say, where there's a will, there's a way. And what I hear tonight is we are the will that creates the way. That allows the way, because the way is already there.
Yep. Thank you, Esther. And it's beautifully said because in order for us to, I've described this before, like we're bushwhacking a path for others to follow. That doorway, we have to create it because it's not visible. And we have to bushwhack it. And the way you do this is by you doing it internally for yourself. And the moment enough of us have done it, collectively, we could sit like the Israelite at the edge of the Red Sea and tend together for safe passage into that new earth. Because the transition from one dimension to another is not a joke. Now, Janice, you had asked me something before. I'm going to bring a couple of things together. Because in typical of Janice, when you ask a question, it's 3 layers. It's just one cake. It's a 3-layer cake. So what I want to address is a part of your question that had to do with whether we are transitioning, and I thought this is where you were going before, whether we're transitioning, whether the place we're transitioning is here on earth or somewhere else. Okay? And I want to address this because it's important. According to the channeling I've been receiving, it's 4,429 light years away. There is some people in certain culture or channeling have said that what we're experiencing collectively is a video, it's like a matrix, it's a video training to guide us, to prepare us for our entry into that other world. I had said to you that I have found, accidentally, I'm putting that in quote unquote, a galaxy that's in the neighborhood of the Milky Way. Not visible because the very axis of our galaxy from where we are, the center of the galaxy is blocking the visibility to it. That's 4,420 light years away. I just thought that was interesting. I don't know if it's there or from where we are. I don't know if it's there or if it's somewhere else, but that number keeps coming back over and over again over every channeling. That there is already a prepared other place that will give us that safe passage. Interestingly enough, other teachers, Indian teachers, have been talking, another thing that's been coming up for me too in the channeling, there is a 3 days of darkness during the passage. 80 to 60 hours of no sun. I've spoken to the group that I was involved with, where Greg Braden, who has a lot of understanding of science and all that does this program on Gaia TV, and he was saying that what's happening to the Earth right now, geologists, because he is part of a scientific forum where the latest, what's not published outside is published in that forum. and he has the latest information. It's a phenomena where the earth stops spinning. And it's when the magnetic flip is about to happen. And it looks like there is a tilt, or there's severe disruption in the magnetic core of the planet that's indicating that there is going to be a flip of the magnetic resonance, of the magnetic flip of the planet. And if that occurs, it will appear like the sun stopped, because we will stop rotating. So I'm saying this, I don't know if it's the answer, but I know that one Indian, Amma, one of the Indian teachers, had said, describing exactly what all of the other seers have said about the 3 days of darkness. And she kept saying all the time, it will be a terrifying moment. And when that happened, do not go outside, remain inside, because she described in Indian, I don't know what the terms were, I don't remember the language, but the Indian lingo, there were all kinds of, the way they're describing, like demons or darkness that could, if you get too focused on them while you're outside during that dark period, they will take your soul in, and you will travel somewhere else. So the point is that the prayer and the intention to focus and ask the great field, the blessed field, the luminosity, whatever you want to call it, the mighty I am presence, to ask it to guide you and take you and give you safe passage into the new earth is the key.
That sounds like the void prior to releasing attachments that you would then move into the great luminosity. It sounds like a mirror of what you've been speaking of.
Yes, exactly. The language is like, and it's coming again from an Indian tradition. It's a completely different thing, but this is what she was saying. That was like 2 years ago that she did a thing with all of her disciple and all student, and she presented all of this. And I had been saying this for 4 years before that, because I had received the same message. Anybody else?
Well, when Esther mentioned will, we're coming together on will for the way to be made. The solar aspect of will is on that blue first ray.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not out of alignment. We just did not understand the way it was taught to us. So what it really means to us as far as making an ascension and going from one level of vibration to another. We never understood that. That was never given to us that way. But certainly, and as you said, it was always given to us in little anecdotes and song. So that solar aspect will certainly be a lifting up from a third dimensional level to a fifth dimensional aspect of the solar aspect of deity.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Celia. Thank you. Thank you all for your comments. Let's take a few minutes break, water break, and then we'll do a closing meditation. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Powerful class tonight, Pierre.
Oh.
Very, very powerful. I realize that when you talk about the Bardo of the living and the Bardo of death, and we're talking about the will and Moses and the safe passage and everything is it's all the same.
Yep.
Everything is the same. It's the same dynamic, and it's very powerful and beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well,
Wow.
Margie, You're saying too, and as far as the Christian, traditions that we have learned, that in the Bible, when Jesus, anything that you ask in my name, I will do it for you.
That's right. That's right. That's
So
right.
to attain that consciousness of the Christ, when God commands, the earth must obey.
Yes.
And
Yes.
this is the secret of all of the great avatar and sages of the past. This is their deeper secret.
Mm-hmm.
It was not them controlling anything. They asked in the name of God, and God did it for them.
Exactly.
That's the point.
Mm-hmm.
You're not the magician with the staff in your hand, and it's not by your will that you're doing any of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's when you surrender into that emptiness, into that field, and you ask of the divine, and you let go of your identity and your self-desire. And the way it's asked, it's always something very simple. You don't try to correct the hand of God by telling him something complicated. This has to happen first, and then the second, and the third, and the fourth. All the experiences I've had with miraculous transformation and change happen with me asking something very simple.
Mm-hmm.
If I get involved and try to interfere, first of all, I don't have the knowledge on how to cure disease or how to. I don't know what to do. I stay in my lane. I'm a human being. I can intend. Please, I'm asking in behalf of this person. Please help with this situation. That's all. And I let go. To the degree that I can let go, the miracle happened.
Mm-hmm.
And the key in all this is to die to self. That's the key.
That's the surrender. That's it.
That's right.
You have to let go
That's the
of the
key.
control of you being in charge. And you have to let that higher power, that God concept, take over. Whether that God concept is the mighty I am presence, whatever it is for you, you have to let it, and it can be anything as long as it's your higher power.
Well, that's what the Apostle Paul was saying when he said, I die daily.
Yep.
Yes.
So it's not a contradiction, but we have to see where it is saying it in a different manner, but not a contradiction to, but a confirmation of. Well, I'm going to take that break. I'll be right with you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Pierre. Thank you.
You're welcome. Take a very deep and slow breath. And as you inhale and exhale deeply and slowly, allow the universal life force that permeates everything to enter into your lives. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And let your soul and your awareness drop in the middle of your chest. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Let your entire consciousness emanate from the middle of your chest. And as you continue to breathe deeply and slowly, you are now in heart and mind coherence. And realize that you can perceive energies 360 degrees all around you. Simply notice what you notice. And as you keep breathing deeply and slowly, surrender and let go of all fears, all attachments, and all control. Let go of all desires, passions, and obsessions that are keeping you earthbound. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And let go of all connections and attachments that you have to people, places, and things. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. Let go of all external events, situations, agitations, and fears. Just take a very deep breath from the core of the earth. And let this breath move through the bottom of your feet, passing through you, dislodging all of these fears and all of these attachments. And let it all go outside of your head. And as you exhale completely out, let go. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. Take another breath from the core of the earth and let this breath move through the bottom of your feet, passing through you, dislodging any residual attachments, fears, or control. And let it all move outside of your head. And let it all be released into the great emptiness, the great void, the great unknown. Let go. And let now the great luminosity that exists in that immense and infinite field and continuum of higher consciousness to occupy your entire being, providing you with the healing, the repairs, the alignment, and the perpetual renewal. That you need. I now stand in spiritual rectitude and verticality, aligned to one truth. I am the monad. I am the light divine. I am love. I am will. I am wisdom. I am mercy. I am power. I am fixed design. O thou recondite King, of all above and below, whose name in love I call protect me with your shield of light, that in your light I may know and become light. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Take a very deep and slow breath. And whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes.
Thank you, Pierre.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome, Johnny.
For everything.
You're welcome.
Thank-
Yes, Bobby.
I just thank you very much. Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, spiritual family. Thank you for being so devoted to this way and wanting to ascend and assist in this great manner and create this bushwalk, this great doorway into the new earth. I look forward to talking to you next week. Blessings for you, to you and to your loved one. I'll talk to you next week. Thank you.
To you as
Well,
well, Pierre.
You're
Thank
right.
you.
Good night.
yes.
And
Thank
Good
thank
you.
night.
you.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.